Essential tips for better webinar conversions. One of the best reasons for investing your time and effort into webinars is that they have insane conversion levels. If your webinar is mediocre, then you can still expect around a 5% conversion rate. Compare that to email marketing, where a 1% conversion rate is common, and maybe 4% of your email campaign is really good. If your webinar is well planned, solves a problem that is in demand, and really engages your audience, then you can be in the 20% conversion range. Not only that, but you will have all of the attendees as new leads that you can market to in the future. A lot of products and services sold on webinars have a high ticket price. So, making improvements to your conversion rate can have a significant impact on your bottom line. Here are the critical tips that you need to follow in order to maximize your webinar conversions. Maximize your attendance rates. You need to be realistic about webinar attendance. If you have 1,000 attendees lined up for your webinar, they are not all going to turn up. In fact, if half of them show up, then you will be doing pretty well. A survey of webinar attendees revealed that 40 to 50% of registrants attend on average. If people do not attend your webinar, they are not going to purchase your offer. So, what can you do to increase the chances of registrants attending? Here are 4 tactics that we recommend you use to increase attendance for your webinars. 1. Increase the perceived value. If a registrant does not attend your webinar, it usually means that they prefer to spend their time doing something else. They do not perceive the value of attending your webinar to be higher than what they plan to do instead. One of the most effective ways to combat this is to offer a valuable bonus at the end of the webinar. This could be a special discount, a valuable report, or something else that is related to the subject of your webinar. 2. Always make offers at the end of the webinar. Nobody wants to attend a webinar where they are pitched with a product or service right away. If you do this, word will get around and your attendance will take a nosedive. Always bear in mind that the first priority of the attendee is to learn something valuable for free. So, give this to them first. Plan your webinars so that you provide all of the value before you start to discuss your offer. When you are able to fully satisfy your attendees with the value you have given them so far, they will be much more inclined to stick around to see what you have to offer. 3. Remind registrants often. Here's another harsh reality check for you. People are not going to plan their lives around your webinars. No matter how hard you try to persuade them to add your webinar event to their calendars, most will not do this. Some registrants will sign up days in advance and forget all about your webinar when the day comes around. So, what is the solution to this? It's really very simple. Just send reminders via email. Timing is very important here. This is what we recommend you do. Send an email reminder a few days to a week before so that the registrant does not make other plans because they forgot your webinar. Send an email reminder the day before the webinar event so that they can plan for the following day. Send at least 1 email reminder on the day of the event. If you're only going to send 1, then make this an hour before the webinar will start. There's nothing wrong with sending more reminders on the actual day, just don't overdo it. 4. Scarcity. You need to make your webinar scarce to people. Frame it as a limited time opportunity that is really too good to miss. Tell the registrants that spaces are limited and that it is a one-time event, so access is limited as well. If people think that they are going to miss out on something good, then they will try harder to make sure that they attend. Do not announce that you will provide a replay of the webinar even if you plan to do this. If you must mention it, then say that it will take several days for this to be available. Warm up your audience. Don't be tempted to dive straight into the content of your webinar. Take some time out to build the anticipation of the event. You need to engage with your attendees here using interaction. A technique that works well is to ask people where they are from. Get them to type this into the chat box and then read these out as you see them. It is a simple way to get people to participate. You could also ask them to tell you in the chat box what they want to get out of your webinar. Ask the attendees some questions at the start that have simple answers. This will get them used to typing in the chat box and will warm them up to do this throughout the webinar. Another good tactic is to ask them to participate in a poll. Ask them something general, such as the number of webinars they have attended this year, and provide easy options. Always make an introduction. You will not know where all of your attendees have come from. Some of them will know you well, maybe from your email list, and others will not know you at all. So, you need an introduction section so that everyone is at the same level. Tell people who you are and some interesting facts about your life. Don't go over the top here. Just provide relevant details which confirm that you know what you are talking about. You don't want to bore your audience here. Then provide an overview of the webinar and the benefits to the attendee. Do not mention your offer at this point. Tell them that they will want to stick around because you have something exciting for them at the end. Remember that special bonus. Excite your audience. When you run webinars, you need to think of yourself as an entertainer as well as a niche expert. We have already covered how important it is to choose the right subject for your webinar. You then need to turn this into an exciting title and refer to it throughout. Some time may have passed between your registrant signing up and attending your webinar. It is likely that they have forgotten why they signed up, so you need to remind them. Don't give away your secrets too early, or you run the risk of people leaving. Don't be boring. This shouldn't need saying, but you must speak with an engaging tone to hold the attention of your webinar audience. If you provide a boring, monotone delivery, then your attendees will leave in droves. No matter how good you think you are at speaking, there's always room for improvement. Here are 3 things you can do. 1. Rehearse your webinar presentation. Instead of trying to memorize your webinar presentation, it is much better to rehearse it. If you are lazy, then this will come across to your audience. With unrehearsed webinar presentations, the speaker will often pause to think about what they are saying and even lose track of where they are. These things are very noticeable. 2. Use the right inflection. Varying the way that you speak with inflection is a good way to engage your audience. All that this means is to place emphasis on specific words when you speak. Change to a slower speed when saying these words and pronounce them louder than the other words. Practice doing this with your webinar presentations. 3. Slow down. Some people have a tendency to rush their webinar presentations. They are either nervous about speaking to a lot of people, or they believe that their audience has a limited attention span. Rushing your speech can make it difficult for some people to understand. Take regular breaths and slow it down. Use simple interactions with your webinars. With webinars, you have the opportunity to have a two-way conversation with your audience. You need this interaction to keep people engaged, but you should also keep it simple. The webinar chat function is the answer to this. Ask your audience questions and call out participants by their names if you want. They will reply to you using the chat function. What sort of questions should you ask? Well, here are some ideas. Do you have this problem in your business? Do you agree that this method is simple to apply? Does this make sense to you so far? You need to keep your questions related to the subject of the webinar. Each time you ask a question, be sure to pause the presentation for a while and give your audience time to respond to you. Look at the answers and then use names to respond, such as, "That's a good point, Susan," or "You're absolutely right, David." Let your audience know that there will be an opportunity for them to ask questions about the presentation and get answers from you at the end. We will cover how to manage these sessions in a later video. Use a proven webinar content model. You do not want to confuse your audience by jumping around from one topic to another. This is a surefire way to lose them and drive them away. Instead, you should use a copywriting-based framework for your webinar content. We suggest that you use the PASTOR model. Problem. At the start, you need to identify the problem that you are going to solve. Amplify. This is where you make your audience really feel the pain of the problem. Go into a lot of detail about the problem here so that it resonates with your audience and they are motivated to pay attention to your solution. Solution. This is the step where you explain your solution to the problem. Tell the story of how you arrived at the solution and how well it worked. Testimonials. Now you need to provide social proof that your solution works. Show testimonials of people that have used your solution and achieved good results. Offer. After you have provided the value in your presentation, it is time to make your offer. Explain how your product or service will help them to implement the solution. Response. Ask your audience to take action right now to get the results that they want. Tell them exactly what they need to do. By using the PASTOR model, your webinar will flow seamlessly from one section to the next. Your audience will see an engaging story unfold until it is time for them to take action. Use examples. One way that you can make a major impact with your webinars is to provide real examples that illustrate the concepts you are presenting. This will help your audience to understand how they can apply the concepts in their life or in their business. Provide as many examples as you can. Your audience wants to apply the concepts in your webinar, but sometimes they will not know how. Good examples will show them the way to do this. Emphasize pain and benefit. Your audience is suffering from a pain in their life, and they believe that your webinar will solve this for them. At the start of your webinar, you need to emphasize this pain and tell them that your webinar will provide the solution. Remind your audience why they are attending your webinar and the benefits of staying until the end. This will help to make your audience pay closer attention. Now you want to break down your solution to their problem step by step. People are not interested in the technicalities. They just want a solution they can apply. Make your offer at the end part of the solution. An engaged audience will purchase. The more involved your audience is with you, the more invested they will be in your solution. Attendees that interact with you the most during the webinar are the best leads and the most likely to make a purchase. Engagement is essential, and here are 3 ways you can encourage it. 1. Use a poll. You need to check periodically that your attendees understand things so far and that they are getting value from your presentation. You can use a poll to get good feedback from your audience. Launch a poll after you have delivered a section. 2. Attract attention with your slides. Don't crowd your slides with a ton of words that you then read aloud. This is boring, and if you're just going to read from the slides, then what is the point of you being there? Instead, use a few powerful words on each slide and fill in the blanks. 3. Use your attendees' names. We alluded to this earlier. There's nothing better for an audience member to hear than their own name. It really makes them feel involved. If someone asks a question, then you can say, "That's a really good question, Jenny." People will love that an expert like you complimented them on a live webinar. Close your webinar the right way. Once you have delivered the value that you promised your audience, it is time for you to make a smooth transition into your offer. A lot of the attendees will be expecting you to make an offer to them, but you still need to make the transition as smooth as possible. Your offer should only be available to webinar attendees. It is also a good tactic to offer your audience a special discount. When you are making your offer, be sure to tie it in with the solution to the problem. Your attendees really need to perceive the benefit of the offer. After pitching your product, hold a question and answer session. Most attendees will want to see the Q&A session and will endure your offer pitch so that they can do this. After finishing your Q&A session, make one last pitch of your offer. Follow up after the webinar. Not all of the attendees are going to make a purchase during the webinar. You need to follow up with them within 1 or 2 days of the event. Use email to send them a recording of the webinar. Explain that you covered a lot of ground in the webinar and that you don't want them to miss anything. Remind them of the benefits of your offer and tell them that the special discount is only available for the next 48 hours or whatever time you decide, and provide them with a link. Tell them that they can ask you any questions by replying to the email. In the next video, we will discuss the best ways to manage webinar question and answer sessions.